Hello, everybody, and welcome to Untether.tv. This is that place you come to pretty much every day to find out some great information, some behind-the-scenes information, some important information on how you can take mobile, take your strategy, take your product to the next level when it comes to this environment, and learn from the guys who are out there doing it, inventing things, creating processes, and sharing the stuff right here on Untether.tv. I'm, of course, Rob Woodbridge, the founder, and I love doing this. And I hope you love listening or watching wherever you are, because this is the stuff that you can't get anywhere else other than Untether.tv. We bring you these folks who are actually out there on the front lines, building, growing, and destroying old business models. So, listen. Here's something that you've got. You've got an app. You've finally had the courage to build it. You've finally decided that you're gonna deploy this out there. You've been approved by Apple. You've deployed on Android, but there are a million apps out there just like yours. Probably a lot of them just like yours. A lot of good ideas have already been made, and we're just improving on these. So how do you go about and create this desire, this want? How do you go out and market your application? And that's what we're here to find out. I have with me John Casey, who is the founder of FreshFluff, who actually penned a great article called The Art of Launching an App, and it's a case study. And I want to welcome John, and he's going to talk us through the process of really launching an app. John, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, Rob. Sorry about your senators.
So am I. So am I. Well, yes, the whole city weeps, but there's always next year, and that's what we've been saying forever. So I do have a question. Before we get into the meat here, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this. The article is great. It was on a smashing magazine called The Art of Launching an App. But why don't you talk about FreshFluff for a little while? The founder of FreshFluff. What is FreshFluff?
First, thanks for having me today, Rob. FreshFluff is a New York-based PR social media agency that I founded almost 3 years ago. We specialize in a broad range of clients, everything from software to retail, to business, to consumer, to films, to books. And our favorite client, of course, is Jumping Pages, which is a children's book app mobile developer based here in New York. So we helped them successfully launch the first production last year for the David and Goliath store. And that's where the Smashing Magazine article that I penned is all about. We took them, gave them a very smart, working very closely with the Jumping Pages team, a very smart, strategic PR marketing plan, which is what we do for most of our clients. Nothing is cookie cutter, and particularly in the app world, it shouldn't be. Everything is, shall we say, freshly cooked. And so that's what we did with Jumping Pages, and we're actually about ready to launch the next production for the company in the next 2 weeks.
So what was it about mobile that really appealed? I mean, obviously you go across media. Pull up your website, but you go across media, and it's not just mobile that you play in. But what is it about mobile that really had an appeal for you, or that made you want to get into this space?
I'm really excited about mobile, and I'll tell you why. It reminds me of the whole app industry reminds me of what happened at the beginning of the retail industry when Samuel Kresge, who started Kmart, was friends with Frank Woolworth, and they started these shops where vendors could come in and sell their products. And there was no organization into it. You could be, a soap manufacturer could be next to a clothing, apparel maker, and so on. And so these little stores that just about sold everything became these behemoths that, sold different categories of retail. And I think that's what's going to happen with the app industry. Right now, it's, you have your Amazon and your iTunes store where the app developers are coming in as vendors and presenting their products. And it's Wild West now, as it sort of was at the beginning of the retail industry. But my sense is that the iTunes store and Amazon and whoever else Google gets up there and starts selling these apps, are going to become the next generation of big box retailers. And so I think it's important for app developers to pay attention, to start to market their products in a smart way, so that when all of this starts coalescing, that they're out there in front as recognized as a retail product in the consumer world. If that makes sense.
It does. I mean, we're in such a massive transition when it comes to the. It's not even a transition. This is an upheaval, because business models are being broken and shattered in front of us. And you know, there's this great scene. We've seen this coming for so long, I think. You know, those of us who have been in the mobile industry for quite some time and have watched this, you know, there's this great scene from Austin Powers where he's, it's a scene where it looks like he's about to be run over by a steamroller, and the steamroller's coming at him, and he's screaming, and the steamroller's coming at him. And then what it is, it's, you know, there's 30 feet between them, and the steamroller's moving about 2 kilometers an hour or 2 miles an hour. And we see it coming. Retailers see this coming. Booksellers see this coming. Magazines and newspapers and media see this coming. And software makers see this coming. But we're just staring at it, waiting for it to almost overcome us. So we're in the middle of probably the largest disruptive force that, you know, we've probably ever seen. It's a culmination of all these industries all at once. But so you're right. What a great place to be, right in the apex of all of this, which is pretty amazing to be at. But a lot of entrepreneurs out there thinking the same thing. How, you know, there are a million apps out there across all these platforms. When you take into consideration Microsoft's platform, RIM's platform, Android and iOS, how do you compete in this space? How is it possible that you can rise above that?
Well, I think the very first thing is pay attention almost through the process of the developing and the coding and everything that you're doing to how you're going to market this product. I've worked on a few independent films in my career, and I can tell you that the development process, the production process, it's almost identical to an independent film. You have these wonderful, creative people who make these incredible products and then just stick them out there. And you know what? You can knock on wood and you can cross your fingers and so forth, pick up four-leaf clover, but that's just not the way it's going to happen. The smart ones know how they're going to market it while they're doing the production. And I think that's what developers need to do. I was at the Digital Kids Conference last week in Los Angeles, and you know, all the speakers were talking about how they are now making marketing and allocating large amounts of budget dollars for marketing their digital products because they have to. So that's the thing, is the very first thing is to pay attention to the fact that you're going to have to market this at the end of production. And once you have that in mind, then you know you've got to start thinking of ways of how you're going to do that. Not just out to review sites, not just out to app sites to talk about the latest apps. You're sort of preaching to the choir there. You know, the smart developers will engage somebody who can put a different spin on the app, so it gets out into the broader mainstream media. And that's what we did with David and Goliath. We brought in the David Eckstein. We created various story angles, and so while we did get review sites and we did get in some of the app sites, we made it more of a broader consumer pitch versus just an app pitch. In other words, we sort of treated it like a consumer product. And that's why we were successful in having so much publicity around the launch of the app.
So when you look at developers today, which is I've worked with some guys. I've run a number of mobile companies, and I've worked with some guys, purely technology guys, technologists, engineers, who say, fire sales, fire marketing, we got the app store. What do you say to guys like that? Because there are people out there that still think that way.
Yeah, it's scary. I've talked to since that article, I've talked to quite a few developers, and last week at the conference, and I'm just amazed that I would never tell them how to code an app, for example.
So true.
But Yeah, they seem to think they know how to market the product. And when you hear, and I'm not, I'm not being judgmental about this, but when you hear some of the responses, you just shake your head and, well, good luck. But that's just not the way it works. So it's sort of a this way, that way. I can't understand their coding, although I'm taking coding classes, so I'm going to learn a little bit about it. But they don't understand the marketing. So it benefits when the client comes to them and says, I have a marketing budget into the production budget of your app. I want you to market the app since you're in that world. A smart developer is going to go out and find somebody who actually knows how to market and pull that app out and, and make it reach several different demographics and tweak it to have several story angles. Not tweak the app, but tweak the pitch.
All right, let's start at the very beginning here, because I mean, and I'm not lying when I said, to you, John, that I've worked with people like that believe that we should just let the marketing and sales happen through the app stores. It blows my mind, and I'm usually left stunned when I hear that. And people are still out there doing it. There is a movement now to have developers understand marketing, that they have to think of their product not so much as an engineering feat, but as a marketing challenge, right? And I think that's a really interesting way of looking at things. But when you're formulating the product, how much should you be thinking about the marketing of that product as you're building it? Or does it matter? Do you build the product and then market it?
Well, the best way to answer that, you're going to build regardless of what happens, you're going to build the product. So it's just to put a little thought into how you might be able to tweak it in a small fashion or make some additions on it to where that you might have some vehicles to be able to market it, which is what we did with David and Goliath. As you see in the article, there was a narrator already on the app. And so beautiful job that the original narrator did, that there wasn't a way for us to parlay that, the narrator, which was an important part of a marketing program, out and to have broader appeal. And that's why we brought on David Eckstein. So it was that tweak to the app, adding something that we could then leverage out and market. And I think that's the first thing that a clever developer will do, is to bring on somebody and say, I have this app here, what can I do with it? And a clever marketer will be able to say, well, there's these 5 partners that you might consider working with. That you might add this onto the app at the end in order to, swing it out into a different media pitch. In other words, offer ideas about how the app can be marketed, other than just plopping it up on the iTunes store and hoping for the best. And that's really never going to work. You're just going to get lost. So that's the first thing, is that during the production process, to your question, is to have somebody come in and take a look at it and say, what can we do that at the end of this process we can implement a marketing strategy that utilizes some of the components that might be built into the app. What can we add into the app to be able to do that?
How soon into that? I mean, so at the conceptualization stage, or should we get engaged with marketing folks at that early stage, which is like, okay, I got an idea, a very sound idea of what the product's going to be. It's going to be this. It's going to be a book. It's going to be a game. It's going to be an app, a productivity app, whatever it is. But here it is. Here's the storyboard. Here it is. Do we get the marketers thinking at that point about what it is they should be, how they should be positioning this? Or is that too soon? Or what's the right spot for this?
Well, there isn't really. I think because this market is so Wild West, and I hate using that because everybody else does, but it's just so all over the place. I see apps out there right now that I say, wow, I wish I could take that app. That would be a perfect branding opportunity for, Acme Company, where you could tweak that app, add to or put a location finder on it, and relaunch that app. So yes, the smart way to do it would be during the production process. But geez, I see apps in the App Store where I think, wow, I could take that app, I could take it to, a major retailer. And incidentally, that what I think the app world is becoming too for retail and consumer products and any other business out there is another avenue to spread brand awareness. TV ads are down, magazine ads are down, print advertising is way down, and I think app market almost represents another medium for, a smart, a major marketer, a business, a retailer, what have you, to be able to use apps to start creating brand awareness for their product. So that is even into the component that I would look at if I saw an app. And then you take it to a retailer, for example, and say, this is an opportunity for you to reach this demographic, through these 3 or 4 avenues. So it's almost like a television show. Advertise on this app.
Well, yeah, you're right there. No, but there's so many things that are within grasp. When you take a step back from what it is that you're doing, oftentimes we get too close to our own creations to see, right? So you're down in the weeds, you don't see the forest for the trees. Any analogy you can think of, but you really do start to believe. As you said in the article, you drink your own Kool-Aid, right? You start to think, listen, this is a brand new mousetrap. I did reinvent something. This is different because of these 4 features. But getting those fresh eyes on this from a marketing standpoint will do that. Hey, listen, if you just add this one little layer, which could be location, which could be time of day, which could be temperature, whatever it might be, you're changing the game for them. That's very important. And I would say that you probably want to do that relatively quickly or relatively often through this process, wouldn't you?
Yes, definitely. And it's funny you brought that line up. The developers I've talked to who have read the article say, oh, I drink that Kool-Aid. You're right. We all drink the Kool-Aid. Well, it is something to be proud of. The app is really something to be proud of. The David and Goliath app was amazing. It got great reviews. It's a spectacular app. But at the end of the day, you want to, and my thing is this: if you built this an exceptional app, then you want as many people as possible to be able to experience it. And so a way to do that is to be able to market it into as many different avenues as you can. And so it's great to drink the Kool-Aid. It's also to leave the glass a little bit half full and say, now what do I do with this half glass? Because I want to get other people to enjoy it. And so that's the key.
I couldn't agree more. And excuse me, what I really love about this approach is, listen, this is the maturation of this industry, is that it did go. It was relatively easy. And if you really want a good opportunity to go and put out a product without any marketing requirements, go do it on the Microsoft platform because they need your assistance. Go do it on the BlackBerry platform because there's less noise, I guess is the best way to describe it. But at some point, and I'm being facetious, like with 50,000 apps, you're still, or 100,000 apps, you're still basically a needle in a haystack. And no amount of proper keyword tagging or description writing is going to get you to the top of the charts. You want to control your own destiny by doing things like you've done with this application. So let's talk about this. You had a narrator. They had a narrator for the app, David and Goliath. You went with this guy, David Eckstein, World Series MVP 2006. What was it about? You frame him as a way of context around this. David and Goliath. David being Eckstein. He's a small guy. MVP of the World Series in 2006. Is like you drew direct lines, David and Goliath, didn't you?
Yeah, I think part of the benefit of being a little older and doing all kinds of PR, from politics to sports to retail to film, you can think out of the box, which is another reason I love the app industry. So when this came down and having to think about how to create some excitement around it, and being a baseball fan like yourself, I thought of David Eckstein because, he's a little David, He achieved glory, and so did the little David in the story. So to me, he seemed like a natural fit. And we were so lucky to have him agree to narrate it. And, you know, we were all, I think, a little nervous before he went into the studio to narrate because he hasn't done anything like that before. His wife is a voiceover artist. So she coached him a little bit. She did a great job because he went in there and he really did, for not having done anything like that. And that's a tough story to read. He did exceptionally well. So he was the first link in that, to be able to put his voice and his story more than anything onto that app. And that was our start to be able to build a marketing platform.
All right, John, let me ask you this. Before we go any further from there, why, out of everybody on the planet, you're walking through in your head, you're the one who came up with David Eckstein. Like, did it just come freely? Like, you know, I'm puzzled. There are a lot of guys that have overcome adversity that would have been a good fit. But it just, like, was he the first guy you thought about when you were posed this challenge? Who's the good reader? David Eckstein. Is that just pop in your head?
No, I had a couple other ideas. But the problem with the guys I was thinking, and it had to be a guy that was going to read this. Because it's more of a father and son experience to share this story. Because it is more of a sport. So there were other guys that I thought of, athletes and actors who could do this. But the one thing at the end of the day was their name wasn't David. And so he had that advantage over all of the other ones. His name was David. And so I just thought that was cute. And, you know, being a PR guy and a marketer, that worked. And he had the backstory to be able to support it. He could stand up and say, I'm a small David. I've had a tough time getting through my life because people said I was never going to make it. Not only did I make it, but, you know, who among us wouldn't want to be a World Series MVP? So he reached the pinnacle. The David and Goliath, I mean, everybody thought he was going to get crushed by this Goliath guy. And he took a swing and he achieved glory. So they had a lot in common. And, yeah, there were other considerations, but, you know, when he was the dream pick, and we were lucky to be able to get it.
Well, I'm a baseball fan, so, I mean, it resonated with me right away. You know, it's an interesting play. But so when you got David in there to do the voiceover, talk about the way you're framing this now all of a sudden. You know, having David Eckstein, a baseball player, in there, what does it do for now the narrative of the product and your release cycle, and when you're thinking about marketing this and how you're thinking about marketing this? Because you picked a path when you chose David Eckstein. How does that change your thinking now, or open up your thinking around how you can really market this product?
Well, to begin with, there was already a David and Goliath book app on the iTunes store. And I know a lot of developers have the same experience. They put something up there and there's a similar product. So the first trick is to differentiate yourself from something that might be similar on there. So we have that against us without David. There was another David and Goliath, a book app. And so, you know, having worked in the consumer retail world, I know how the consumer thinks. They're going to see two, and they're going to pick the one that's less expensive, just because that's natural, because they're going to assume that those two products are the same. And so they're going to take the one that's, you know, economically more feasible for them. Ours is priced a little higher because it's a quality product. But in the iTunes store, that's hard to be able to convey. So that was the first thing. We had to differentiate ourselves. And then adding David onto that then lifted it up a little bit. Now we had a narrator with a backstory. That was the first thing. The second thing is we had a newsworthy event that was coming up. So the app was ready to go, and I think it was about July. So David's voice got on in August, so we waited until October because that was the start of the World Series, a newsworthy event. And that's really a very important part of the whole process that a lot of people miss. If you have an app, try your best to hook it on to a newsworthy event that's coming up. So here we are. October was coming. That's the World Series. It was the 5-year anniversary of David's World Series performance. So there's an anniversary in there. There's the World Series as a newsworthy event. So that was a logical time to do it, to get him back in there and push it out. And, you know, as luck would have it, the Cardinals got in the series last year. So we couldn't have gotten any luckier with that.
You scripted that perfectly, man. Like, talk about PR.
Yeah, I know, exactly. That was all part of the marketing plan.
Actually, John, I think if it was part of the marketing plan, it would have been the Pirates in there, right?
Yeah, I know.
See if you can script that this year. I
What's
said,
that?
see if you can script that for this year.
Yeah, I got to go in there and change it. Maybe I change their marketing around. I'll start winning it. Right. At least if I get to 82 wins, I'll be happy.
500.
So that's what we did. So we had a newsworthy event. We had a great partner in David, and we had an anniversary. That always helps too. You know, if you have an app coming up, take a look at what was in the news 10 years ago that might be similar to that. For our next children's book app for Jumping Pages, we have Congresswoman Pat Schroeder, and why I chose her was because 25 years ago this year, she ran for president. And as a former a trailblazing congresswoman in the United States, ran for president 25 years ago, I think she's going to be news. People are going to want to see her back there. And the House, the story is called The House That Went on Strike. And her memoir is titled 24 Years of Housework and the Place is Still a Mess. And the story is about a family that messes up a house, and the house gets fed up and goes on strike. All the appliances in the house go on strike. So she comes from authority, having written a book, you know, tongue-in-cheek metaphor, 4 years of housework, and the place is still a mess. So, and the final hit on that was that she was also the president and CEO of the Association of American Publishers for 10 years. So it's a new book. It's a new title. We wrote this thing. It's a rhyming tale. You know, we have her on there as an authority. She did an amazing job reading it. So that'll be out in the next week or two. And we'll be announcing Pat Schroeder as the narrator. And then we have different tracks to be able to take our marketing from.
Well, so, you know, you're following a trend here, obviously, of endorsements or a celebrity involvement or pseudo-celebrity involvement. David Eckstein included in this. So how important is that? Is that necessary for app makers to have it, you know, like, you know, we're on the baseball track, you know, EA Sports does that with EA Baseball. Every year in NHL hockey, all the sports teams, they always have somebody on the cover of it as almost an endorsement. But how important is that in the mobile space? Is it important? Is it needed?
No, I think, you know, not everybody can get access to a celebrity, and not every celebrity or noteworthy person is going to agree to do it for, you know, a percent of the cut. I mean, so my suggestion is always for a small app developer is to take it a step up. There could be a corporation or a business out there that might be able to brand themselves through this app. So that having them on as a partner is just as noteworthy as having a celebrity. And then, again, it takes all the tricks to be able to see, well, maybe there's something within that business that you'd like to hook up with, an anniversary or a news angle that's coming up that you could launch the app on, and you know, they get caught in the rays. I think smart developers, if they want to approach prospective partners, should have a strong marketing strategy as well as a development strategy to them. Show them, here's what we can do this amazing app for you. And once it's done, here's what you can do with this app. Here's the markets you can reach. Here's the story angles you can create. Here's ways to be able to spread your brand awareness. So that is, you don't need a celebrity, but to take a small app, to bring it up a little bit, go out and find a partner.
I mean, it's great advice, and partnership can, as you said, can come in many forms, right? it can be around a piece or a piece of the app or the focus of the app, and I think that's or it can be a complementary distributor of the application, which I think is key. You think around monumental events that happen every year, and not only anniversaries, July 4th, Canada Day, Baseball Hall of Fame induction day. There are certain things that you can they're clockwork every year. Super Bowl, World Series, without obviously infringing. So now, what kind of updraft does that do for you? So you've got this perfect thing. You got David Eckstein. You got 5 years since his MVP World Series performance with the Cardinals. You got the Cardinals back in the World Series in 2011. You're releasing this book called David and Goliath. It's David Eckstein's, basically. It's his story. It's like the perfect. I mean, it's a perfect crescendo. So what happens when you push all this out like this? What were the results?
Phenomenal. In one word, we had so much coverage, and many thanks to David for doing interviews for him. We had Wired magazine, we had mom blogs, we had dad blogs, we had Major League Baseball covered. He threw out the first pitch in Game 6, and they did a whole couple paragraphs about the app. We had scores of reviews, and that's the other thing, and I know developers know this, they all submit their apps for review, and you can wait months for that. But a reviewer sort of works the same way as a reporter or a blogger. So if there's something in the news, and there's an app that's there that fits into what is going on in the conversation, then they're probably going to be more likely to review it a little faster. And that's what we found with the World Series app. We put that out there, and reviewers reviewed it a little quicker because the World Series was going on. So it made the review more timely.
That's great, but that's great advice, right? I mean, when you're doing something like this, is that you want to put an ability, like a time frame around this, so that people will react to it, that they don't have to wait until New Year's Day, so to speak, and you're in July. You really want to time the app launch properly, and I think that's the impact. Because you said the app was done in July, right?
Yes, around July it was.
And then you waited to launch it until October. So you did this. This was done on purpose.
Yeah, there was. We wanted to make sure that it was done properly. To get maximum effect for the launch and for the promotion of the app. And so that's why there was a lot of push for us to do it sooner. I think we all wanted to get that app out as quickly as possible, right? I think in the long run it saved us to wait, and it was a smart move to do.
So what was that impact? So you said it was great. Rocket launch, I'm just going to actually pull up right here. You can't see it, unfortunately, John, but it's the Facing Your Goliath interviews with David Eckstein here. It's about David and Goliath. It's about the book. This is on Wired. It's on Geek Dad. So this is kind of coverage that you typically would not get when you're launching an app, right? You don't get onto Geek Dad with David Eckstein. You don't get onto MLB.com. So all this coverage. Now, did this kind of erupt and then subside, or did it kind of maintain that kind of high? Because we see this. It's like, the accelerant. Most apps do this to varying degrees. Everybody has a bump. The bump can be very high or very low. But then we hit this point where there's almost a precipitous decline into this trough of despair for app developers, right? Where you hit the highs. You're like, look at these downloads. And then the next day there's none, or there's one or two. So it's the trough of despair. And successful apps manage to elongate that height and push off that trough. But most apps just go straight up and then straight back down to varying degrees. So how was it with David and Goliath?
Well, to a degree, I mean, we sort of had the same experience. We did elongate it a little bit. We had the good fortune of having David come to New York to do a demo of the app in an Apple store in the Upper West Side. And then there were opportunities later on for David to be out there talking more about the app than the World Series. So there were, We did stretch it out a little bit, but the most important thing for us was it gave us the opportunity to go on and build additional apps. And that's the other thing. You know, developers might think that people are out there looking for, what are your numbers? Everybody wants to see your numbers. You know, your sales numbers or your downloads, and those are important. But just as important, I think, to anybody who's going to invest in an app company, they want to see, you know, all the bells and whistles. Did you get any media exposure out of this? And I think that is one thing that the developers can point. They launched it right, and they had a great success in the media. That's something impressive. That's a feather in their cap that they can be able to sell into anybody who's interested in becoming a part of the company. And that's one of the overlooked components, I think. I've talked to, you know, I've worked on a few startups back in the heyday of the early 2000s, and we had great success with a couple startups, getting them in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and that meant just about as much to an investor as some sales numbers. That was exciting to them. So getting the good marketing and getting the exposure, maybe your numbers aren't always so low, it brings an element of excitement to your app.
Well, yeah, beyond a shadow of a doubt, getting coverage and earning that right. You know, everybody talks about the TechCrunch effect or the Dig effect or something to that extent, where they were featured in TechCrunch and they got massive awareness on that one day, and you felt like a rock star. It's the next day that I always worry about. It's you know, post app launch partum depression that happens, and that really does happen. But you're so right. Listen, you know, I often talk to app developers that have put so much effort, 7-8 months of development time into their first app, and they're going to go out and they expect huge things. And I would say that, look, in the app space, it's incremental. Corner cases like Angry Birds aren't going to happen. Your company is not worth $1 billion. Neither is Instagram, but your company is definitely not worth $1 billion right away. But the key here is build out. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you probably feel the same way. But how many, because you're in this every day, how many times do you hear about Angry Birds?
Too many.
I mean, there's too many. And so that's it. And most people say, oh, Angry Birds, we get Angry Birds, we get Angry Birds. Well, that's a 1 in a million thing. You better manage your expectations a little more. And there's other examples out there that you could use that are, you know, a little more relevant than Angry Birds. But I'm sure you hear it all the time.
Well, you know, I hear it all the time, and the key thing that people forget quite often is that the game costs 99 cents, and they have a number of games, and that's fine, and you know, but their real life game costs $20, and the plush toys are $25, and the ones that make noises are $49. It's not the game that's making them the money, although that is big. It's also the fact that they've got this entire brand around it now that actually, you know, they've branched out, but the point is that they leveraged one platform, and any good app developer will leverage one app and take that, build an audience with that, create an endearing audience, and then build a second app quickly behind that, and then a third app. And it's the combination of those apps that raise the company and the revenue from that company. You know, the story around, you know, we all know this, is that Rovio, there was 59 or 60 failures before they hit the one that hit it out of the park. But those 59 or 60 failures were generating revenue for them. Right, so something kept them alive, and that's the perseverance that you have to go through this. So the other thing, John, you talk about is you know, you talk about this as we talk about partnerships. You talked about relevance, tying a way to trying to tie your app to something that resonates with people. You also talk about audience. That what did you say here? You said don't play to a stadium, right? So explain that.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to your point where developers just think, I'm going to put it out on the iTunes store and it's going to be a hit. Well, it's sort of like being a spectator at a big stadium. You know, 50,000, 60,000. If you're at a college football game, 100,000 of you there. How are you going to stand out? So a lot of people think they have to just conquer the entire stadium when they come out. And the smart person knows that to really pick a very specific demographic. Get a small crowd excited about your product first, and then that will build out if your product is good, positive word of mouth should come out of that group into others, and then spread your brand awareness. It's just going back to the independent film. We worked on a film that that had gone through the festival circuits. The director tried furiously to get distribution for the film, and after a year of the festival circuits and writing out to distributors, no deals, nothing. So when he came to me, he said, "I have this film. I'm just going to stick it on iTunes and hope for the best." Well, I took a look at the film, and the film had, as the lead character, the woman had lupus. And I never recalled seeing any lead character in a film have lupus. So we did some research. We found out that that was true. There was not a lead character in any film that had lupus. So we went and set the film director up with the lupus organizations as partners. And we worked with lupus bloggers to review the film. Rather than go out to film sites to review the film, we worked with lupus bloggers. And so we worked with the lupus community who loved the film. It's a great film called Love Simple. And so that enabled the film to start very tiny into a very specific community and build fan support. And it's gone out from there, and the film picked up an international distribution deal. But it was just poking a very small select demographic and moving out from there. And a developer can do the same thing. Don't try to, if you have a game app, the game is not for everybody. Well, find a very specific niche that could be for. Somebody's going to react very well to it. And they'll be the ones to be able to start spreading positive comments about your product.
That's a great example of it, because when you pick out your audience, one of the key things that you've got to do, I mean, you need an audience. You can't just market. There isn't an app that fits that fits everybody. There isn't one size fits all with these things. And we have to make sure that you understand who is going to use this and why they're going to use it. And that's why people look at essential apps, things that you and I will use daily because they solve a problem for us. They serve a purpose that other things that are missing from anything else that we do, or there's an easier way to do this. Things like, you brought it up in the article, things like to-do apps. Like, what was that app called? Because I actually downloaded and played with it quite a bit extensively. Clear, that to-do app.
Yeah.
Right. They reshaped it and changed the way that they do this. But functional apps like Clear, functional apps that allow us to book flights, change hotel rooms, scan product codes. These are apps that serve a purpose, and those tend to rise to the top a little bit more than creative artwork or creative works of art that like games and applications like what you've created, like books. So there is a balance there that you have to strike between usability, frequency of use. I mean, I use an app called Game Fitness on my phone, and they have a game in here that says, listen, I don't know if you've seen this app. It's a pretty amazing application. It tests you physically and mentally at the same time. Just because you want to cry every time you go through one of their programs, it's pretty intense. But what they do is they've gamified it a little bit, and you're not going to be able to see it, John. But what I've got on the screen, what it says is that, listen, you schedule your workouts, and we're gonna count what your workout streak is, and then when you miss a day with your workout on it, you miss that workout. So feel guilty, Bob. Right? That's what they're telling you. And I reached out to them and I said, listen, you know what? I don't like that. It's too constrictive. I don't like it at all. I want to be able to move my workouts around based on my need. And you know what he said? He said, look, you committed to this. You're going to commit to it. That means that every time you miss a workout, you missed it. It's gone. It's off the chart. You can never get it back. You won't miss a workout. And you know what? I haven't. Simply because I don't want to be guilty about this thing. So there are ways to gamify. There are ways to turn this into something that really resonates and fills a utility. And I love that. And I think that when you're looking at these things, whether it's a cause, whether it's an audience or relevance, you start to think about, you frame it around those pillars that you've got here. And that's what I love about what your article signified, was that, listen, start thinking about these things, folks, or else you will get lost in the mud and you won't be able to, your app will just languish there.
Yeah, there's so much potential. It strikes me when I read about apps on the app sites and think, my oh my, they could be in they could be in a fashion magazine, they could be in a sports magazine, they could be this, they could do that. There's so many ways you can take it, and I think just going in with blinders on, not seeing the whole potential of their apps. There's so many out there. I actually read about an app today. The Ugly Meter app. I don't know if you've seen it, and I am not going to take or download that app. But it has, it's starting to get news today. It's called the Ugly Meter. It's from a company called Dapper Gentleman. And you put your picture in, and it rates your picture of how sexy you are, how good looking
Oh, no,
you are.
no. I don't want that either.
No, I'm definitely not downloading that app. But there are so many ways to be able to take that app and make it more out into the mainstream, because a lot of people are going to have fun with that app, and at the same time maybe help it support a cause. So it's a little snarky, but maybe the app goes to help children with cleft lips, 10% of it. So there's a good cause to it too, and then you bump your exposure up there, and people don't feel so bad about what the app says because they know it's going to help a cause. But I looked at that app today and I had a good laugh, and I thought, well, I'm definitely not going to put that on my list of downloads. So I don't want to know how ugly.
No, exactly. I like to keep up the mirage. I definitely like to keep that up. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. That's why I do video, right?
Thank you. Not gonna find it. Not even tempted to find out what it would say. Not even
Ugly
tempted.
Meter. I love that. Well, what about this last piece here? Like, so you talk about, there's two more pillars. You talk about this, the cause, right? So I love this idea, and there are always causes that you can tie these things to. So creating interest around a cause is another way to market this thing. Where would you be worried that people are just trying to mash causes into something like, hey, I'll donate 25 cents to the Cancer Society if you play this shoot 'em up game, but it is a very valid way of finding an auxiliary marketing source. But do you feel kind of, I don't know, dirty doing it that way?
I used to scratch my head about cause marketing programs. I mean, I had a lot of experience with it in the retail world, but it is a very valuable way to be able to help a nonprofit. And, in the way the economy is these days, nonprofits are looking for any way to make money, to beef up their donations. All of them are going to say yes to your offer to help them. Hey, would you partner with us? 10% of the proceeds on this app will we'll give back to you in exchange for you helping us, perhaps, announcing it on your Facebook page, or Twittering it out. A lot of charities are very careful about who they partner with. If it's an app that sort of ties into the brand, the charity's brand and their goals, they'll probably want to work with you in some capacity. You don't always have to go national. I mean, if you have a dog app, let's say, the National Humane Society may not want you because they're partnered with, major corporations. But go to your local one. If you're in Ottawa, or Montreal, go to the local dog charity there. They might be able to help you. Again, it's starting very focused in that niche and building out from that. But there's always something you can do to further the exposure of your app. And one of the best ways is to help somebody at the same time that you're launching it. And a lot of the nonprofits are very happy to post about your app or to help you promote it because they get something from it in the end.
That really does. It does resonate, obviously, and it's a as long as there's a genuine interest in this. And I love your example here. You say like 25 cents to charity every time you hit the snooze button on an app. You know, I'd be poor by Wednesday, which is always a challenge. All right, I've got to ask. All of these things, you know, I've gone through a lot of questions around this, and certainly a lot of people have asked questions to me about this, and they always talk about this. You know, it's very easy if you can afford to license a brand that already exists, right? You know, so movie brands do this. They're flash in the pan, and I would never recommend anybody doing this, but you know, certainly the Avengers are hot right now, and you start to think about the brands like McDonald's licensing Star Wars and Lego licensing Star Wars and all these things. That bringing that audience to this world is very important, and that's one way to do it. But you need money for that. To get celebrity endorsements, you need money to do that. To get celebrity participation, you need money to do that. And you know, what about those guys that don't have any money, that are quite literally in their basement bootstrapping this? They've got to be able to build something out. They've got to be able to market this out. Obviously, these pillars that you're talking about, the ones around relevance, audience, cause, relationship marketing, partnerships, they're all very relevant still. They hold up on here without celebrity or without licensing endorsements, don't they?
Well, yeah, if you don't have the budget, there's always ways to be able to do something. You have to be creative. And I think going back to what I said, maybe it's not always going national or but go to a local. If you're in a small town, go to a local retailer, for example, that maybe wants to partner. So that what the beauty about an app is that it can be updated and changed. So if you're supporting the mom and pop grocery store down the street that has maybe 3,000 Facebook fans, there's your start. And maybe there's some cute thing you can integrate to do with them, and then you push your app out. You start to build a little bit of buzz about it. Then you can always change it and update it. But I think people are, again, locked into selling the stadium. And if you can really narrow your focus and be a little smart about it, and go after an organization, a local organization or a local business that has a great social media presence, and use them and partner with them to help launch your app. That's sort of an economical way to do it. Not everybody's going to be an Angry Bird and go world over, but you need to start somewhere and start small. And you know, if it's a great app, it does the trick. If it's entertaining, then your audience will build from there.
John, it's a great point. I mean, I use this example a couple of times in the 350 or 360 interviews that I've done. And because it's so relevant here, I just want to bring it up. It's a company here in Ottawa called Selwan. They created a product called Pound Taxi, which basically it does exactly what anywhere in North America on your phone, Pound Taxi, TAXY, will connect you to the nearest cab. And they wanted to market this. It's a very simple process, but they didn't have a lot of marketing dollars. And the CEO is a good friend. His name is Nick Quain. And what he did is exactly that. No dollars, a service that is a carrier-based service, a fee for carrier. It's on feature phones. They went to Mothers Against Drunk Driving, partnered with MAD. So MAD is on every campaign. It's a drink responsibly campaign. So when you see a MAD advertisement, you're going to see Pound Taxi right next to it because it supports their cause, and it creates a great co-marketing opportunity for Pound Taxi. And this is exactly that. This company, 6 employees in Canada, you know, driven to prominence through relationships around very, very key and targeted relationships to Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Perfect fit. Genius. They could have gone to every bar, every restaurant, every chain, right, for their corporate social responsibility, but they went to Mothers Against Drunk Driving and omitted that. It was a perfect relationship. That's a perfect example of an app doing that, co-marketing relationship with a cause. And I mean, I can't think of a better one. I probably could. You could probably think of a few, but my own experience, and it's worked out very, very, very well for them. And that's the key here, isn't it?
No, that's a great example. And that's, again, somebody you put just as much creativity in developing your app. You should put that much amount or give that much attention to being creative in how you're going to market it. And I think that's where it gets lost sometimes. All of that focus is making this creative, amazing product. And, oh, it'll be fine once it gets out there. Everybody's going to love it. But they need to take a step back and put as much creativity into going after our Mothers Against Drunk Driving, for example, working with them. That's creative. And that matches the creativity of the app. And, you know, then you're off to a great start.
Well, John, I figure we could. This is a conversation that is a 10-part series. Each one of them are an hour long to kind of get this and bring it up to the level that we need to, so that mobile app developers understand the importance of marketing. And every time I think that we move forward, I hear that engineer say, "Well, I don't need marketing and sales," and then I take 2 steps back. So hopefully, what we've done here is we've just started to illuminate this issue. Think marketing from the get-go. Think about your audience. Think about how you're going to partner. Think about how you're going to, if there's cause marketing, think about relationship marketing. Think about these examples that you've brought up. Think about the impact that you can make on just doing these, thinking about this ahead of time, not after the fact, after you've launched your application. I really want to thank you for doing this. Where can people find out more information about you, John, and perhaps the applications that you've created and helped market?
Well, they could read the Smashing article to find out. It was posted in April this month. So check Smashing Magazine. They can go to FreshFluff.com. That's one word. And they can check about us. And then finally to JumpingPages.com. Jumping Pages, I think, is doing amazing things, not only in the development of their apps, but also in the way they're marketing it. And they're going to be a very successful company. So you can check those 3, Smashing Magazine, FreshFluff.com, and finally JumpingPages.com.
The art of launching an app. John Casey, the founder of FreshFluff, thank you so much for being a part of this. I really appreciate your time, insight, your candid nature. It's amazing. The feedback from the article has been incredible. I would love to hear from you guys out there who are watching or listening, wherever you are. What do you think? What are we missing? What is it that developers need to know in order to be able to go out and market their applications appropriately, their apps? You need to do this. We want you to stay in business. So think about the marketing side as much as you think about your development and your deployment. Think marketing. Think marketing. And for those of you who are still out there who think that all you need is an app store, well, there's shock therapy or there's this kind of stuff. Just open your eyes to the opportunities, because if you're selling anything right now, think about what you could be doing if you put a marketing spin around what it is that you're doing. Thank you, John. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thank you, Rob. I'm happy to come back anytime.
I will have you back. That is an absolute guarantee. For those of you who are out there watching, listening, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, can't thank you enough. I really appreciate that you do this each and every time I post one of these up there. And there are 360 of these up there, so that this is just the tip of the iceberg. Go back to Untethered.tv and take a look around. You will be amazed at the amount of information that is free up there. So thank you for watching. John, thank you for participating. We'll see you next time on Untethered.tv. See you later, everybody.